So I'm here with James Vaulkhard, who I will be showing at the British Art Fair this year at the Saatchi Gallery at the end of September as part of Solo Contemporary, which is curated by Xavier Ellis. And James has produced an incredible series of Kenyan landscapes. James was brought up in Kenya and spent a large part of his childhood in Kenya. And he's here to talk to me about the works. Hi, James.
Hi, MC.
How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Could you tell me about spending your childhood in Kenya? Which part of it did you like the most?
I suppose if in terms of the series, it's the Kenyan landscapes, sort of, which you see in the paintings and drawings. So it's sort of Mzambweni, which is the beach where I grew up, and doing safaris around Kenya. And it's sort of the colours and the vast landscapes, I think.
I talk about your works. I always kind of contextualize your education and upbringing in the sense of which I think people, sometimes it's difficult to understand how hard it is to create such simple lines with such an understanding of forms and be able to simplify compositions, but at the same time create this incredible sense of dynamism. How do you think your Florentine education reflects in your works as they are now?
Well, the training in Florence was sort of very sort of disciplined academic training, where we sort of learned philosophy of seeing, and we'd spend weeks on a drawing kind of focusing on form and contour. And what you see in these drawings I still focus on that. So there's a lot of linear contour that's really important in the drawings. And what's different, I suppose, is this a contemporary aspect of brighter colours and mark making and sort of a bit more sort of broad painting and drawing.
Talking about colour, so your use of colour is non-descriptive, it's an emotional one. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think when going back to Florence and my early sort of career, I was sort of inspired or influenced by a sort of traditional colour palette, a limited colour palette, which we were taught, and we were only really allowed to use 4 to 5 colours.
I see.
And then when I moved to London, I sort of maintained that same palette and introduced a few extra colours. Part of the sort of darkness in these early paintings, which I think is also related to grief after going through a couple of family bereavements, which certainly kind of created this sort of darkness to my paintings. But recently I think I've experimented with also pastel drawings where the colours are naturally going to be more vibrant because they're not mixed with oil.
There's definitely a Doig Hockney influence in your work, and I mean Doig obviously, as we all know, touches a lot on the subject of memory and the subconscious, and he creates these dreamlike landscapes which I find similar echoes in your work. So within that context, which part of your work is painted and drawn from life and which is a kind of dream imposition on the canvas?
Well, I tend to start working from life, so I'll go sort of out in situ and paint and sketch, and then I'll bring those sketches back into the studio and sort of scale up from there.
Yeah.
And once I have a composition and a drawing down, then I tend to sort of discard the images and sketches and tend to just improvise, and then that's where the spontaneity and the flexibility comes in.
You've been experimenting so much in the past few years. And I feel like the works now are they're obviously a continuation of these experimentations. It's like, which part of the works are you happiest about now as being part of that development that you've carried through the past few years?
I think 2 years ago I was still over painting and sort of pushing a painting which, and I'd spend months on one painting, and I was sort of determined to try and be a bit more spontaneous again and paint broadly and quickly. And that's certainly something I've managed to kind of get to with this series, is learning to actually sort of and be happy with a drawing or a painting and not afraid to keep pushing it. And so I've been working a lot quicker, a lot more spontaneously. I think working in pastel just lends itself to do that, to be sort of sketchy at their drawing, and then I can scale up into larger paintings.
Of course.
Once it's already figured out.
Yeah. Can you tell me about the characters in your paintings? The star of our show, of our booth, is going to be this painting of Fisherman.
Yeah,
Can
he's
you tell me about
back
him?
there on the wall. So this is in Mzambweni Beach, and he would turn up. He's a local fisherman, and he would supply fish, down the beach. And sometimes he'd turn up with fish; they'd practically be still breathing, that fresh. and that sort of that tree is the entrance to the property, which I think features a little bit in some of the other work. Well, it's in this big one, and in some of the smaller pastels. And yeah, he's just a local guy. I think when we were younger, we would sort of play football and be in like the rock pools, and now he's probably similar age to me, and still around supplying fish to everyone.
Can you tell me more about this painting?
Yeah, this is a couple of friends. Again, as you said, it's a bit of a memory. I worked from a photo, not from life. So it's nearly there, but again, just trying to keep it really broad. And you can see the sort of, there's the form. I'm blocking out light and dark, and then the contour, which is highlighted in the orange. So there's a lot of, the classical training that has gone into this.
Absolutely. You can see it in the shadow line, and I feel like that's what creates so much depth in your work. So even though it looks like it's simply constructed, it really isn't. It comes from a fountain of knowledge of how to define form.
Yeah.
Form being built with shadow and lights.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's definitely, it's a sort of a balance of trying to make it look spontaneous, but it's very thought out, and
there's years and years of practice and training that goes into being able to make such complicated composition look simple.
I mean, I've been looking a lot at the Bay Area figurative movement, and certainly been looking at some of the artists and inspired by how they paint. There's a sort of abstract expressionism, but they're still kind of keeping the figurative aspect of it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.